I started wrestling when I was in 2nd grade. My dad was a wrestler in high school.
I first got started in wrestling in 4th grade.
I started wrestling in 5th grade.
Remember, I got this little flyer from Junior Indians Wrestling Club when I was in 2nd grade, and they put it in like my little cubby or whatever, and I came home, I didn't think anything of it.
My mom just kind of asked me one day whether what kind of sports I wanted to do, and asked me if I wanted to join wrestling. Nobody in my family had ever wrestled before, so I guess I just figured I'd give it a try.
I played Junior Indians football in 5th grade, and the Maroon coach, Mr. McMahon, who's also our high school coach, asked me if I wanted to wrestle, and I talked to my mom about it.
I put it on the counter, and my dad picked it up, and he's really eager for me to get involved, and he talked me in it. I didn't really know what wrestling was, what it was about. I didn't know that it was going to be the biggest decision I ever made, biggest part of my life from there.
So I decided to wrestle.
Fell in love with the sport ever since.
When I started wrestling, I was just like any other kid just starting. I wasn't like a state champ right away or anything. I won a couple matches my first year, won a couple more my next, and after about 3 years with the youth program, I was sick of having like a 500 season, I guess. I wanted to get better. So I decided to join an elite club. I joined Ringers.
My first year was pretty solid for a first-year wrestler. I was about a 50-50 wrestler. I would take 2nd or 3rd at most tournaments. Ended up getting my first tournament win at Greendale, which I had a 4-man bracket, and I won 2 of the matches, and the other guy didn't show up that day. So I started freestyling Greco in 6th grade, and it was a really good experience because I started wrestling almost year-round, and really develops your folk style wrestling all around. So it was a really good experience. I found out that I really liked throwing people, so I really started to wrestle a lot of Greco.
My first year wrestling, I was not very successful. I didn't win a single match my first year. It was rough, and it was hard to stay motivated to keep going, but I decided I couldn't quit wrestling after not even winning, so I kept going with it.
When I first qualified for state, I was ecstatic. I mean, I had never done it before. I tried the year before that. I was in a pretty big bracket, and I ended up taking 3rd or 4th, I think. So I was like a place or 2 away from going. I remember I went to Madison the year I didn't qualify to watch, and I watched so many kids that I had wrestled with, and I just dreamed of being on those mats in the Uline Energy Center.
In like 7th grade, I started joining Ringers, so got in more practices with their club. So I started to take wrestling more seriously. I wanted to get better, and I saw some of my friends going to state for the youth wrestling tournaments, and I wanted to go to state as well because I heard it was a lot of fun, and it's where the best of the best wrestled.
In 7th grade was really the year I started really focusing on wrestling and getting better. I started Ringers with Austin and Eric because I had a lot better coaching and a bunch more practice partners outside of Menominee Falls. And kind of in the middle of the season, I kind of started leaning towards going to Askren Wrestling Academy, which is AWA. And I started doing 2 days a week there and then 2 days a week at Ringers, and I just kind of fell in love with the way that Askren taught wrestling and started just going out there from then on.
And I wasn't there. It kind of broke my heart. So the next year, that's kind of what pushed me to join Ringers and try to get to the next level. So when I made it, I was so happy. I remember I couldn't stop thinking about. I used to get really nervous, but the thought of just going to state that year, like I wasn't even nervous. I was just happy to be there and be out on those mats. I think that's kind of what helped me do good, is because I wasn't really concerned about the big picture of winning a state championship. I was just happy to be there. And when I got there, and I remember I walked out on the mats for the first time, I was just grinning from ear to ear to be at the state tournament for the first time.
7th and 8th grade, I qualified for the youth state tournament. Leaving school early, and going up there with Matt and Austin and some of the other guys from the Falls that had qualified for youth state. And it was just it was a lot of fun. The hotels, it's just a party.
In 7th grade, freestyle and Greco season, it was a really exciting one. I got a lot better at both styles. Ended up taking 2nd in Greco, which was really exciting for me because I fell in love with Greco and I've been doing it so often, so it was a really good time at state.
And then things went downhill after 7th grade. I took some time off from the sport. I was under a lot of pressure. I don't want to make excuses or anything, but I just never really got along with my dad. It seemed like our only relationship was through wrestling, and it just kind of pushed me away from the sport. I had to take some time off. I had technically quit, I guess, and then seeing all my friends keep going and everything, I decided, I went off for track and field, and I tried all these other things, and those weren't right for me. So I came back to wrestling, and I didn't have much success my 8th grade year, I think because the time I took off is like I had forgotten part of it.
In 8th grade, I started going to Askren full time and got a lot better there, especially in my folk style and freestyle wrestling. It really kind of just pushed me over like a breaking point where I really just started to beat the best competition in the state. So come around 8th grade regionals, I took first pretty handily, and I went to state and kind of made some noise. Even before wrestling started, we all went up together. We drew on the vans with spray paint and stuff, and it was really exciting because it was my first year. Warm-ups before, I was hanging around my teammates like Austin and Eric. It was really just kind of relaxed and just kind of a really good experience. Even before I started wrestling, kind of made me more comfortable with the atmosphere there.
And towards the end of my 8th grade year, I started to pick it back up. I qualified for state again, and was in the quarterfinals at the state tournament, and I was up 4-1 to make it to the semis in place. And kid took me down, cut me, took me down again, put it in overtime, and then took me down in overtime, and I did not place.
So my second match at state, I had Brady Coons from Stevens Point, and he's always been on top, best of the best with his brother. They're twins. It was a really good match for me. I don't remember the score, but I remember it being very close, and I was doing very well for him being so good, and ended up losing, but I took away a lot of things from that match.
Two! You got it! Oh, come on! That's all right, Matt! Use your head, buddy!
So on the backside, I won a couple matches, and I ended up winning my blood round match. So I was going for the match to see if I went for 3rd or 5th. So I ended up wrestling for 5th and wrestling my teammate Dominic Dentino. Who I've wrestled a few times throughout the years and ended up winning, so I took 5th at state, and my emotions were really high. I had Austin and Eric cheering from the stands, and it was just awesome.
So that was kind of the lowest of lows. I was kind of contemplating being done after that again, but I stuck it out. And then from there, I went on freestyle Greco state again, placed in freestyle, not in Greco, and got ready for high school.
Sometimes me and Matt and Austin would have to wrestle each other. That was tough. Wrestling your friends is never fun in competition. You get nervous, and neither of you wants to, compete against the other, because, you're wrestling each other almost every day in practice, so you know what they're gonna do and you know how each other wrestle. So, ultimately it made us all better, but it was still tough tough experience.
Going into freshman year, we had all kind of spread out around there. Well, Eric did. Eric grew. He had a growth spurt, and lightest weight class in high school was 106 pounds, and Eric came in probably around 105, 106. So he was a decent size 106 pounder, and I came in around 92, 93. I was pretty underweight.
After 8th grade, I made it one of my goals to be varsity as a freshman.
I mean, it was really hard. Me and Austin were both underweight.
I'd grown a little bit, so I was just at 105, 106 pounds.
I mean, there was a little drama there, but not really, because we knew that he had a much better chance of doing anything on varsity than us.
I just wanted to be out there, and it sucked because me and Eric, we had always been best friends, but eventually we spread out, and but freshman year it was me and Matt. We were just light, and Eric was out there. And
Austin and I both wrestled a lot of varsity matches still, though. We actually wrestled at JV conference against each other in the finals, and it was a close match, but he ended up winning, but it was really fun. So freshman year, I joined the national team and wrestled for like a bunch of camps with them, got a lot better, had the best partners in Wisconsin, so it was definitely worth it joining that year. I ended up actually going to Fargo, which is the biggest national tournament of the year. It's freestyle and Greco, and I ended up going 0-2, but I'm glad I went because it was just a really good experience just to get the feel for what it's like to be out at the biggest stage.
So obviously we're still competing with each other for that spot, but then we also had another guy on our team who was a junior at the time. His name was Aaron Daly, and he had just placed second in state. Going in, I knew he would be wanting to cut down to 106 at the end of the year. He'd been wrestling 113 all year, but then everybody drops a weight class for state. I had made my goal to be on varsity as a freshman, and I was wrestling 106, wrestled in the dual meets and tournaments and stuff like that. Then come the end of the year, I knew Daly was going to drop down, so I didn't win the wrestle-offs against Daly, and then my only other option was to go up, which I couldn't do because I was still a little bit smaller. I wouldn't be able to wrestle at the 113 weight class. So that was pretty much the end of my season. I watched him go to state, some of the other guys go to state and do really well. When I went to watch the state tournament my freshman year, is my first time seeing high school state, and it was a really cool environment at the Kohl Center, and I knew then I set my goal that I was going to be at state the next year and that I wanted to be a state champion.
So going into our sophomore year, I think we all kind of knew what was coming. We knew that there was going to have to be multiple wrestle-offs. We had 3 of the top kids in the state trying to fill 2 weight classes, and they're not going to make another weight class just for us. So.
It kind of almost like ruined our friendship because one of us had to take the other spot, and I mean we're both so passionate for wrestling, so it was just really hard for us.
I was wrestling 113 all year. Austin and Matt were at 106, and they were having a tough battle for that spot.
From the first day of practice to the last day of practice, it was always a grind between me and Matt trying to beat each other.
And we both knew that it was going to be one of us at 106.
There were so many wrestle-offs throughout the season trying to determine, who's going to go out there and start as our varsity 106 pounder. And I remember our first wrestle-off ever ended up 0-0, so the coach didn't really know what to do there. I didn't really know what that meant. I mean, it was 0-0 before that, and then I won, but I didn't think we had determined who was the better wrestler yet. And it kind of started, and it kind of came into reality that I was the starter at the Nicolay invite. Then that kind of settled in, what had happened. I didn't know if there was going to be more wrestle-offs. I found that out later that there were going to be plenty more wrestle-offs. And after that, we just kept wrestling. and it was a brawl every single day in the practice room.
I was thankful that I wasn't in their shoes because it was very stressful for the both of them, and I felt really bad. But I still had my competition with Daly to look at.
It sucked for us to have to compete with the kid that, is in your way of your dreams every single day. But McMahon knew that it would make us better, and I think it did in the end.
Come the end of the year, I had my wrestle off with him. He had just gotten back off a shoulder injury, so we had our wrestle offs I think it was the day before, 2 days before regionals. So it was really cutting it close. He had just gotten back to practice, and I was able to beat him in the wrestle offs, which secured my spot for regionals. I was able to wrestle there.
And it wasn't like we could avoid this. There's not a class under 106 that one of us could drop to. It's kind of inevitable. We just had to go out there, and it was we wanted to be friends, but it was kind of hard to keep a solid friendship that we had always had.
He was upset. He was a senior. I felt bad that he couldn't go as well. It was my goal, go to state and to be a state champion. I wasn't going to let anything stand in my way to reach that goal.
It sucked that I had to wrestle one of my best friends to get on that team, but there's nothing we could do about it. Throughout the year, every single tournament, it was, we were trying to, me and Matt were trying to do better.
One of my biggest tournaments of the year was definitely Battle on the Bay, and it's one of the toughest tournaments we go to, and I ended up taking first. I was determined to win. I did not want to lose. I was in the position to really show myself for who I am.
We wrestled some of the same kids, good kids that Matt was able to beat and I was not. I remember I got smoked by a kid that Matt beat 8-0. It just was kind of demoralizing, and it kind of gave us a restart on the wrestle-offs because Matt was beating kids that I couldn't. But then it was every wrestle-off I could beat Matt, and I think the coach didn't really know what was going on. And throughout the year we both had a lot of success. So Matt didn't have a loss on the season until the Highlander invite when he and I had to wrestle in the finals.
He ended up beating me 4-2, and it really was a boring match. And in the third period, I kind of just broke down crying because I knew that this was a big thing for me to lose, and I probably would not be wrestling at conference or regionals because of it.
And he had an amazing season, beating many good kids, and it was just crazy that, McMahon wanted us to have another kind of wrestle-off in the finals, and that was his first loss of the season. I had 4 or 5. So, we both had good success. We both won multiple tournaments. There were a couple, good close matches that we each won, but it seemed like Matt was always beating better kids than I could. I beat good kids. I couldn't beat who he was.
It was really frustrating for me because I could never beat him, even though I was beating kids that he lost to. When you wrestle someone who's been wrestling you since you put shoes on, it's just really hard because you know what he's going to do, he knows what you're going to do. It was always close between me and Austin. It was just kind of more mental for me because I could never beat him, and he kind of just had that mental edge on me.
At the end of the year, we had one last round of wrestle-offs. It was best 2 out of 3. After that, it was done. And I remember that after the wrestle-offs were done, it was so much weight got taken off my shoulders. I would stay up tossing and turning all night thinking about that all season long. It was the longest and worst season of my life because I could not stop thinking about, these wrestle-offs and having to beat, one of the best kids in the state just to be on varsity. And, after that, me and Matt became good friends again. I remember I had a big match at sectionals, and he'd help me out of practice. He put me in positions that he knew would help me. He told me, I'll help you with the scrambling so you can beat this kid at sectionals, and he was good about it after that. And that was really nice to be able to get back to, the way we were before we had to compete all season long. The night of sectionals, the brackets came out, and I saw a kid that, when I was in youth wrestling, was one name that I did not want to see in my youth bracket. He put a beating on me when I was a little kid. I remember he double chicken winged me until I'd cry. His name's Devin De Los Angeles from Beaver Dam.
First round draw, Tyus White again. So, I mean, this is probably like my 5th time wrestling him. I was mad I didn't win that match. It was always a goal of mine to go out there and beat him because he was good. He ended up taking 2nd. And then I was on the back side of the bracket the next day at the tournament.
And I drew him first round. He won his sectional, I took 2nd, so I had to wrestle him first round at state, and once again, it was another pretty boring match. He was bigger than me, he was pretty big, 106-pounder, and he had, had a good season. He was ranked first at the beginning of the season, but he dropped off to like 10th or 9th or something like that, whatever. It was 0-0 going to the 3rd again, and he was down. He ended up getting a reversal with like 30 seconds left, and that ended my state tournament right there. He lost to the eventual champ next round, so that was my tournament. I was pretty bummed after that.
I wrestled another kid I had wrestled throughout the season. So this is my 2nd time wrestling him. I knew what he was about. It was a really close match. It went into overtime, and I ended up choking. I made a bad shot in overtime, and he was able to snap me down and get behind and score his takedown to win the match.
I could not believe it was over. I was really happy to make it. I was really glad to make it. And
after that match, I was really upset. I didn't want to feel like that ever again. I felt I had let my coaches down and stuff like that.
I mean, I did want to place though. Everyone in that bracket does, and I thought I'd be happy just making it, but seeing the kids on the podium and knowing that I wasn't on there was pretty devastating, and that pushed me to be better the next year.
I knew then that I wasn't gonna go to state next year and not place, because I didn't want that feeling of losing again.
After the state tournament, I was bummed after the results that came out of it, and I wanted to keep wrestling. I did freestyle Greco like I have every year.
That year I had tried out and I had gotten on the freestyle Greco national team, the practice team and stuff. That was a cool experience. I went to Northern Plains with them. We took a coach bus out there. Got a lot of good competition wrestling freestyle and Greco. I didn't do Fargo though. I didn't feel I was ready because I didn't do as well at freestyle and Greco state. I took 5th in freestyle at state, but I didn't place in Greco.
So I definitely cut a little more weight for Fargo that year, and it was a really good, for just going to Fargo, I already went the previous year. I didn't do anything there, and I really just kind of let it fly because I had nothing to lose. I had nothing kind of to prove, so it was just kind of a really easy going, and so I ended up winning my first match, and then I wrestled Riley Gurr from Washington. And he ended up in the finals, and it was kind of a close match. I didn't really wrestle the best match, but and then after that I won 4 matches in a row to get to the blood round the next day. And I feel like if I would have wrestled that match the day of the 4-win streak, I definitely would have been an All-American, but I had all night to think of it, so it was kind of hard for me because, I have never been on that kind of stage or platform before, so it was kind of just really tough for me to overcome that.
After my sophomore year and all the pressure that I had to make the varsity team, I was so pumped going into junior year, knowing that Eric was going to be 126, I was going to be 120, and Matt was going to be 113. And for once in our lives, all three of us were spread out. So, I mean, we knew it. We knew that this was the year. So it was our time to all get out under that light, be on varsity. It worked out just how we wanted it to.
There you go. There you go.
Finally felt like there was going to be no drama on the team because there was me, Austin, and Eric were all spread out. So it was really good to feel like a team that year, and that we really showed our teamwork in winning the conference title that year.
I had pretty decent success. I won a couple of tournaments, won conference, regionals, sectionals. But then it seemed every tournament on the weekend, I was coming home with a silver or bronze, and that was just really getting to me. Every single weekend I came home, and I remember I put my medals on my dog because I was sick and tired of looking at silver and bronze. I hung my medal on my dog's neck and he'd walk around with them.
That year, I broke my finger at the beginning of the season, so that put me out for a week or two, and then I came back. It was tough. I had my brace on my finger, and it was all taped up, and it kept sliding off during the match, and I was using up all my blood time to fix it and retape it. And in that match, I was really hesitant with my hand. It was my first time wrestling with it on, so I was nervous and it was hurting. But no, I mean, I wrestled for the team because I knew that they needed me at that spot. And then my coaches and my parents didn't want me wrestling for a few more weeks. They wanted to heal up more, but I wasn't gonna let that happen. I wanted to wrestle too bad. Even though my parents didn't want me to wrestle, I told my coach that I was all good, and he let me wrestle at the next tournament at the Marty Loy. And I took second at the Marty Loy. I was feeling good. My finger was all right. Just taking a lot of ibuprofen and stuff.
Yeah, I kept losing these close. I lost to Devin Day Los Angeles again, the first tournament of the year. Lost to Aaron Schulis, the state runner-up from the Quantico. There's a lot of tough matches. We got a tough schedule. But I was just happy that the one kid that I wasn't having to wrestle was Matt anymore. I was glad that we were all separated.
During the regular season, it was a pretty good season. I ended up winning only one tournament, but I took second in a couple, and at Battle on the Bay I took fourth. But one of the highlight matches was probably at Marty Loy, my finals match. I ended up losing, but I was wrestling the state champ of that year, soon to be champ. So it was a pretty close match. He was a really tough rider, and I just couldn't escape from him.
I did well my junior year. I only lost 6 or 7 times total. I was doing really well. I won a couple tournaments. Got to sign the bottle. That was one of the things our coaches started doing. If you won a tournament, you got to sign this water bottle, and it was like the championship water bottle. It was a lot of fun.
Just kept training for the end of the year, came into conference, healthy, ready, and I was a 1 seed again, ready to take on conference. I came in, I got a bye again, first round, because I was a 1 seed.
Conference, I was expecting to wrestle Tyus White again for the conference title. So we got there, and it turned out he had pneumonia. So I didn't wrestle him, and I was really mad because I was really looking forward to that match.
So for conference, I cut down to 106, just like Austin and Eric cutting down a weight class. I only wrestled twice because I was the #1 seed, so I had to bye first round. I ended up wrestling Josh Reindel, who I ended up wrestling 3 weeks in a row. I ended up pinning him in the first period. My finals match was pretty close. Wrestled Tommy Deenan from Marquette.
Your championship match at 106 pounds from Menominee Falls, Matt Anderson.
And ended up being 6-0.
I didn't have to wear my brace anymore on my finger. It was all healed up, so I was ready to go, but he wasn't, so.
This year it was a lot bigger of a team thing for us. I think we kind of all realized the team aspect of it, and we all came into conference trying to score as many bonus points as we could to bring home a conference title, not only for ourselves, but as a team. So I pinned my kid in the semifinals, and then I was really pumped up for my finals match. I beat the kid. I went up there, I surprised my dad. I found his wrestling shoes, A6 Tigers. I found them downstairs in the basement. They're from the 1980s, and I didn't tell anybody except for Matt and Eric and a couple other kids on the team. And I went out there and I threw on these 30-year-old wrestling shoes, and my dad broke down in tears after he saw that. That was a pretty cool moment.
In your championship match at 113 pounds, from West Dallas Central, Edwin Jimenez Perez, and from Miami Falls, Austin,
So I went out there in my A6 Tigers, and I pinned the kid from West Dallas Central and won conference, and then we ended up winning as a team. We brought home our conference title that we didn't get the year before, so that was probably one of the biggest accomplishments on the year.
and your championship match at 120 pounds, from Brookfield East, Fulton, Houston, and from Miami Falls, Eric, one.
Pinch. Good job. Illegal.
I ended up just wrestling through there, and I took first, and so did Austin and Matt, and that was a lot of fun because we got a cool picture at the end, all of us holding our bracket sheets, and we were remaking a picture that we had taken in middle school when we all won the same tournament. So semifinal match, I went in, and first period I was down. It was like 2-1 again. Guy got a takedown and I got a reversal. That match was a dogfight. Probably one of the toughest matches I've ever wrestled. I got up with the lead going into third period. Once again, all this stuff happens in third period. I'm riding and I'm on top. I get called for stalling like 3 times in this match. And the first one was legit. I definitely wasn't doing anything. Didn't want to give up any points. But the next 2 were really bad calls. My coaches were freaking out, and I started to get a little worked up, but I was able to step back, kind of center myself, and come back into the match. And I rode the guy out to win the semifinals match. And it was just really solid wrestling. After that match, I was so excited, but so tired. I threw my hands in the air after getting my arm raised, but I was so tired I couldn't even get them all the way up. So they're like halfway up. All I remember is running and hugging my coaches, and then scooping up my stuff and running up into the stands to hug my parents. That was just an amazing moment. It was also my 100th win. My mom made a little sign on some cardboard saying congratulations on your 100th win. I want my legacy at Menominee Falls to be simple, just as a great wrestler and a great person to be around. I love having fun with the team. I love the guys on the team, love the coaches, all great people. Always having fun. Just want to be, I want to be remembered for being one of the best wrestlers in Menominee Falls.
Our lightweights on our team have always been, second to none in the area. We haven't really had any team be able to compete with our lightweights. Maybe Stoughton or Stratford could, but we got some of the best lightweights in the state, and I think that we're always going to be remembered for that. I'd like for us to be able to, finish strong with our last season as lightweights, and just, we've always called us the lightweight trio, and I just want us to be able to go out there and do what we've all wanted to do, and that's, bring home a state title, and hopefully we can be remembered by that.